By the time it wrapped up, it was agreed that one of Breaking Bad's critical strengths was its clear purpose, making it a rare series without too many plot holes, dropped storylines, or extraneous scenes. The acclaimed 2013 final episode of Breaking Bad decisively concluded the story of Walter White, but the fate of Jesse Pinkman was left unknown. Now, El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, is here to fill in the blanks. Let's delve into the details and dig up some Easter eggs and references you may have missed. And be warned, spoilers are ahead. El Camino begins with a flashback of Jesse and Mike Ehrmantraut making conversation about where they might escape to if they ever ended up as fugitives. Mike is clear in his answer: Alaska, the last frontier. By the time we catch up with Jesse screaming down the road after the events of Breaking Bad, it's clear he had escaped to the Great White North on his mind for a while. But first, he has to take care of a few things. Jesse's dash for freedom is almost immediately derailed by an army of police officers, alerted to the white supremacist compound by the pounding hellfire of Walt's military-grade swan song. Seeing the red and blue approaching, Jesse swerves his car into a driveway, laying low with the lights off as the police pass. When they do, he backs out swiftly, knocking over a mailbox. The mailbox hangs there, holding in the corner of the shot as Jesse flees. The address number, 212. Phoenix is the 12th episode of Breaking Bad's second season, or episode 212. It's the episode when Jane, Jesse's then girlfriend, dies. It's a turning point in Jesse's life that takes him from a bad situation to true prolonged misery. Considering that one of El Camino's last scenes is a flashback to Jesse and Jane, this shout-out seems suitable. Over the course of their time on Breaking Bad, Skinny Pete and Badger proved themselves to be surprisingly adorable. They have surprising depth, from Skinny Pete's show-stopping piano skills to the duo's abiding passion for sci-fi. In the Season 5 Breaking Bad episode, Blood Money, Skinny Pete and Badger have an extended dialogue about Star Trek.
So you're telling me every time Kirk went into the transport, he was killing himself? So over the whole series, there's like 147 Kirks, at least.
With that background in mind, it's a real pleasure to see Skinny Pete's house so decked out in Star Trek paraphernalia. From starships on the bookshelves to sci-fi-inspired chairs in front of the TV. It's just another detail to further flesh out the character we thought we already knew, showing how their possibly addictive personalities can be put toward interests way more wholesome than what you'd find at the end of a meth pipe. One of the more obscure Easter eggs in El Camino doesn't require an extensive knowledge of Breaking Bad or its spin-off, Better Call Saul, as much as it relies on the viewer's knowledge of both shows' creator, Vince Gilligan. The charming and folksy showrunner has come to inspire great loyalty in the people that he works with, but he also draws similar praise from fans of his work. Apart from the quality of his art, that fandom seems to be partly owed to the fact that he's proven so willing to engage audiences with callbacks and references. In El Camino, one of those nods is a lot more personal. As Todd is driving Jesse to his apartment to help with an ambiguous but foreboding errand, the car passes by the intersection of Holly Avenue and a Rose Lane. Holly, of course, was the name of Walter and Skylar White's daughter, the newborn whose future security so motivated Walt's twisted turn toward crime. But Holly's name was itself a reference to a real-life figure, Vince Gilligan's longtime girlfriend, Holly Rice, since a rose is the Spanish word for rice. Of all people, who would have thought the Breaking Bad movie would spend so much time on Todd? One of the most loathsome villains in a series that have plenty to go around, Todd returns in El Camino in extra-large fashion, with an extended flashback to a dreadful weekend Jesse spent in his very weird company. With his apartment full of serial killer-esque trophies, sparse decor, and an actual dead body, Todd in El Camino comes off like a combination between Jeffrey Dahmer and that kid from Saint Elsewhere. The most perplexing objects in Todd's home can be found in his collection of strange, apparently handmade snow globes. While there'd be innocuous decor for your average kindergarten class, they come off as eerie in the context of Todd's apartment. The one held up by the faux police officer just before a cornered Jesse makes himself known seems to show a representation of Todd locked in a winter wonderland with Lydia, the high-powered operative in the global meth scheme whom Todd developed an unsettling fascination with. She is shown literally submerged in a giant teacup, frolicking while Todd watches. What a creep. Breaking Bad loves its motifs, whether it's a one-eyed pink teddy bear floating in the pool, or the sky blue color of methamphetamine, and so much else. Another minor motif is dogs, with different characters being described as dog-like, relating to whatever is going on in the story at the time. Walt's lab assistant, Gail Bettaker, is described euphemistically as a dog who needs to be put down by Jesse for being an inconvenience.
He was just like a problem dog.
In Season 5, the unhinged, revenge-focused Jesse becomes a rabid dog. Then, after Walt flees Albuquerque, a single stray dog crosses the street on the road behind him, all alone. El Camino brings the dog motif back in the dynamic between Jesse and Todd, who further proves his creepiness through the way he treats his prisoner. On multiple occasions, from the hair combing to remarks about keeping him better groomed, Todd reveals that he thinks of Jesse as nothing more than a domesticated animal. It's deeply unsettling, and speaks to the depths of abuse Jesse suffered during his captivity. Jesse's escape from Albuquerque is an arduous process. When Jesse returns to his parents' home, sneaking in with a hidden key after luring them off of the premises, he makes a beeline to a locked safe, working to retrieve some old guns for a coming conflict. As he makes his way through the house, he briefly pauses to look up as he's standing over an ancient crawl space outlined in the floorboards. Jesse would have no way of knowing this, but a crawl space like this one played host to one of the most iconic shots in the entire series, and a low point for Walt. In the episode Crawl Space, Walt ended the hour literally sunken underground. The famous shot had intense implications for the story to come. Walt, it seemed, was a dead man. But Jesse's not going to the crawl space, he's going upstairs to find a tool for his freedom. Seeing Breaking Bad itself seems like a given requirement for El Camino, but would viewers also have to be caught up on Better Call Saul? It's a good show, but one easy to sleep on. The 4th season isn't even on Netflix yet. Vince Gilligan was asked this very question in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. While he had hopes that the dramatic stakes would be clear enough to engage new viewers, he did agree that it's a better movie for a fan of the series. By all means, see Breaking Bad first. Better Call Saul, not as much. You can't say the man lied to you. There is indeed at least one Better Call Saul reference tucked away in El Camino, working to further establish this fictional Albuquerque as a living, breathing place. When Jesse arrives for his final confrontation with Jack and Todd's affiliates, he has to wait patiently as the group is entertained by a group of strippers, brought to the location by a bodyguard named Clarence. This is the same Clarence who proved to be uniquely unfit for bodyguard duties during a previous encounter with Mike in the Season 1 episode Pimento, where he was only referred to by his size rather than his name.
You want one? All right.
When Breaking Bad first started, it was easy to see Walter White as a good man with his back against the wall, and Jesse Pinkman as his amoral, necessary foil. Boy, did that flip by the end. One of the ways the audience learned to view Jesse with compassion was in the way he himself was compassionate towards those around him, particularly children and animals. Jesse even treated typically loathsome animals like creepy-looking insects kindly, as was shown in the Season 2 episode Peekaboo. That episode involved Jesse going off on his most arduous solo mission to date, fending off violent, far-gone meth heads as he attempted to also do right by their sorely neglected child. Before that episode took off though, Jesse whiled away the time by letting a large black bug crawl onto the back of his tattooed hand, regarding it with a smile as it crawled around his fingers. That Skinny Pete then immediately moved to crush the bug seems to have done little harm to their abiding friendship. El Camino makes a reference to this scene as Jesse waits for the strippers to leave before his final attack on the welding company crew, letting a similar bug crawl onto his head. He regards it closely this time, keeping his thoughts private. At least it's not a housefly. On Breaking Bad, flies drive you crazy. Going into El Camino's mysterious release, you had to wonder, are we going to see any Walt in this thing? While few really thought the bullet-riddled Mr. Lambert would be coming back to life, it was asking the questions of whether Bryan Cranston will be back in the role in a flashback and a bold cap. The answer to both questions turned out to be yes, a somewhat obvious yes in the case of the bold cap. From the clothes they're wearing and their general demeanors, Jesse and Walt's flashback scenes seem to take place immediately after they found their way back to civilization after being stranded in the Season 2 episode 4 Days Out. The scene features plenty of fan service, from Walt absent-mindedly forgetting Jesse graduated high school to one last grandiose.
Yeah.
During their discussion, Jesse and Walt get into the mildest of disagreements about the value of pineapple, which Walt can take or leave. Jesse claims it's good for you, full of bromine, which Walter corrects to bromelain. While Jesse's attempt at trivia is, as Walt says, not even close to being right, it is a reference to the chemical element which forms the bruh in Breaking Bad's memorable title card. When it was first announced as the official title of the mysterious shot-in-secret Breaking Bad movie, the name El Camino struck many as only deepening the mystery. What could it mean? Obviously, the name El Camino is most known as a classic Chevrolet car-truck hybrid, with the hood stripes on some models forming the basis for a few of the Breaking Bad movie's promotional posters. It's specifically the model of car Jesse uses to immediately flee from the white supremacist camp, but he doesn't hold on to the car for that long. Instead, it remains stowed at Skinny Pete's place as part of an improvised plan to keep Jesse safe. After the first 15 minutes, it's barely in the movie anymore, so what gives? Breaking Bad was always a series that enjoyed playing around with titles. When the titles of each of the ominous plane crash flash-forward episodes ultimately spelled out 737 down over ABQ, or how the last episode's name, Felina, is both an anagram of finale and a reference to the Marty Robbins song that scores a critical part of the episode. Translated into English, El Camino means the way, which is a turn of phrase as open to interpretation as Jesse's original fate. He spends the movie looking for a way out of his predicament and a way forward in his life, perhaps ending up, as Aaron Paul told us so many years ago, as a carpenter living quietly in Alaska. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about your favorite shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.